It is time for the population report video for 1993. We're going to have some foily goodness. We're in the midst of the comic boom, and we're going to have two actors who each portrayed two different characters that are on the list here, as well as somebody else who has their own biography comic and portrayed the first appearance of a character on the list. Hold on, what are we going to see? Find out next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hello, panelologists. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. We're doing our CGC population count video, and things have gotten more difficult, right? For some reason, CGCdata.com, because when CGC changed from the census count to the population report, the interface became different. And for some reason, the data on CGCdata.com froze at September 16th of this year, and then more recently, it went back in time to December 31st of 2023. So what I did is I looked at all the books, I made a preliminary list, and then went to the CGC population report to confirm that. We also have a ton of books because it's the comic boom and everybody's publishing comic books in 1993. And so we have a lot going on. There are also more variant covers that we're going to talk about. And for now, I think I might change it for next year because it's easy to find when it's I have to do an extra step of going to the population report for each book. It's easier to find the total number of copies, blue, yellow, green, purple, gray, etc. That's fine. Right now, we're just talking about the blue label copies. We're going to count down the top 10. And then once we get past the top 10, we're going to, I'm not going to do the ranks because I kind of lost track of that going from the CGC data to the population report. We will keep them in order by the total number of blue label copies. But what is interesting is that the top 13 books on the list for this year come from 6 different publishers. We're going to have the DC top 10, the Marvel top 10, any books that are within the DC top 10, as well as the top book from each individual publisher. So we're going to start at number 10, and we are going big in terms of number of copies. We're going with Superman number 75, The Death of Superman. This was a landmark issue. Now, what's interesting is this does have still a decent amount of value in a 9.8, despite the fact that there are a lot of them out there because the cover is black on both the front and the back, and it's harder to get in a 9.8. And it's still a desirable book. It's still like about, I think, in excess of $150 for a 9.8. Don't talk a lot about values here, but what's interesting is when we're talking about books, let's say, up through the Silver Age, there is a connection between the number of copies and the value of the book, because the more valuable the book, even in lower grades, people are going to submit it. We get a little bit of an inverse relationship with some books there because the more books that are submitted because of their popularity due to a movie, let's say, or a TV show, increases the supply of 9.8s. There are plenty of 9.8s of all these books out there, and then the demand doesn't keep up with it. So, at any rate, Superman number 75, Death of Superman. Everybody's putting this away to, pay for college and all that sort of stuff, fund retirement. This is the first print. Now, not every book, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, not every book has a differential on the population report between newsstand and direct. There's only about 2 or 3 years ago that CGC started marking that on the label. This has 4 prints, both newsstand and direct, different values. They do use Roman numerals underneath the issue number to denote the print. This has a total number of copies of 3,296. Let's go to number 9 on the list, and it is Venom Lethal Protector number 4, the first appearance of Scream. This was a 6-issue miniseries. We'll talk more about this later. This has a total of 3,732 copies. Up next is Spider-Man Unlimited issue number 1. This is the first appearance of Shriek. Now, Shriek was portrayed in the Venom Let There Be Carnage movie by Naomi Harris. And all of these Venom-related keys. This is the first part of the Maximum Carnage storyline. All those books got really hot leading up to the movie, which coincided with COVID beginning of the comic boom. of the 2020s, not the comic boom when this book was first published in the 1990s. And there are 5,171 copies on the population report in Blue Label. At number 7 is Deadpool #1, subtitled The Circle Chase. This is the first solo Deadpool book. It was a 4-issue miniseries by Fabian Nicienza and John Madeira and Mark Farmer. And it is an embossed cover, and it's black. So again, harder to get in grade because the embossed covers can't really be pressed easily. And any damage is going to be there, and it's going to, be instead of black, they'll be white when you see a tick. But still, Deadpool being extremely popular, there are 5,204 copies. Number 6 on the list is Batman Vengeance of Bane Special Issue #1 by Chuck Dixon, Graham Nolan, Eduardo Beretta with a Glenn Fabry cover. This is the origin and first appearance of Bane. And of course, Bane was in that 1997 Batman and Robin movie portrayed by the professional wrestler Robert Swenson. More interestingly portrayed by Tom Hardy in The Dark Knight Rises. What was that, 2015 or thereabouts? So Tom Hardy, of course, also portrayed Venom, who's already appeared on this list. Not his first appearance, but he's been on this list. There is another actor, to see if you can figure out who it is, who portrayed 2 characters who had their first appearances in this list. One is maybe a little bit of a cheat, but I digress. This particular book has a total of 5,530 copies on the population report. It leads us right into the number 4 book on the list, which is Batman 497, where Bane breaks Batman's back, which was part of the Dark Knight Rises storyline in the movies. It's part of the Nightfall storyline, and it does have this weird thing that DC was doing at the time and putting like this paper half cover on the front, and it was a full cover on the back. There were also subsequent prints of this book, and this is by Doug Mensch with Jim Aparo and Dick Giordano art, and Kelly Jones illustrated the cover. This clocks in with 6,071 copies. Number 4 on the list is Amazing Spider-Man 375 and all its Venom-related foily goodness. It's the final confrontation, not really, between Spider-Man and Venom. Dave Michelini did the story. Mark Bagley and Pat Olaf did the art. Bagley and Randy Emberlin did the cover. Again, cardstock, foil. Hard to get in high grade, but there are a lot of these out there. And again, leading up to both Venom movies, there was a lot of, it's still a popular character, but almost anything Venom was being submitted. This has 7,109 copies. Number 3 on our list is from Image Comics. It's Spawn issue #9. This is the first appearance of Angela, as well as the first appearance of Medieval Spawn. So Neil Gaiman did the story and Todd McFarlane did the art. And there was quite the legal dispute over the years between the two of them over the ownership of the character. McFarlane claimed that Gaiman did it as work for hire. Eventually, the details were undisclosed, but Gaiman did gain the rights to the character, and then he sold them to Marvel, and she was in the Age of Ultron storyline in 2013, I believe. There are some, and she was retconned to be Thor's sister, which was kind of how, in a way, they portrayed Hela in the Thor Ragnarok film. So I think it's unlikely that Thor's going to another sister's going to pop up in the MCU. Maybe in a reboot, 15 years from now or something, we'll get Angela. But it still remains a popular Spawn book. And it does have a total of 7,248 copies on the population report. Our number 2 book on the list is, I got it right back there, it's Batman Adventures #12, the first appearance of Harley Quinn, not in continuity. So, Harley Quinn, who first appeared anywhere in media in episode 22 of the Batman animated series, The Joker's Favor, on September 11th, 1992. So then, it wasn't long thereafter, it was within a year that she got into the Batman Adventures comic book, which was an offshoot of the TV series. In the style and both in terms of art and storytelling, it was aimed for kids. Since then, Harley Quinn has become an incredibly popular character, portrayed by Margot Robbie in the Suicide Squad films and the Birds of Prey film. and Lady Gaga in the Joker film. And this book has gone up and up and up. It's settled down, but it's still a very expensive book in high grade. I think, at least in terms of the Marvel and DC books, this is the most expensive book on the list. I'm not sure if there's some like weird, because I didn't really look at values. There's probably something that is worth more in high grade or may not be found in a 9.8. So yeah, Arlene Sorkin did the voice of Harley Quinn, and that character, kind of has changed coming over to DC and been built upon the mythology to become one of the more popular characters in the DC canon. She was brought into the DC continuity 6 years later in 1999. And this has 10,099 copies on the population report, which is dwarfed. It's less than half the number of copies of issue number 1. And issue number 1 is Venom Lethal Protector issue number 1 by Dave Michelini. Mark Bagley did the art and the cover. Red holofoil on this one. A very available book, still over $100 in a 9.8. This is the first Venom solo series, much like that Deadpool series. And there have been Venom series thereafter. And we saw issue number 4 lower on the top 10. This is number 1 with a total of 20,765 copies on the population report. Let's move on to number 11, and we're going to go to another publisher. The next 3 books are actually 11, 12, and 13 on the overall list. And they are from 3 different publishers, neither Marvel nor DC or even Image. Number 11 is John Byrne's Next Men, issue number 21. This is the first full color appearance of Hellboy by Mike Mignola. And he had previously, basically, Hellboy is a fictional character in the Next Men universe. John Byrne had left Marvel and DC to strike off his own with Dark Horse and produce his own characters. And issue number 14 shows Hellboy like on a poster in the background, but this is the first time we really get Hellboy in color. It was a Mignola creation. There was a 2004 movie directed by Guillermo del Toro and starring Ron Perlman as the main character. There was a follow-up to that. Then there was a 2019 movie with David Harbour as Hellboy. There is no Red Guardian key on this one. And then more recently, last year, there was a direct-to-video, video-on-demand release of Hellboy. But we will probably talk more about the character a little bit later on. This is the top book from Dark Horse, and it comes in with 3,231 copies. Our next book is from Bongo Comics Group. It is Simpsons Comics number 1, with Bill Morrison cover and art. This does have a couple of other alternatives. There's a barcode version in the lower left-hand box. There would be a rectangular box with like Bart in silhouette. This is the first of a very long ongoing series. The Simpsons themselves debuted on April 19th, 1987 as shorts on the Tracy Ullman Show by Matt Groening, the creator. And the shorts were kind of crude, and it was just a little semblance of what the characters would become. 8 months later, there was a Christmas special, which is episode number 1 of the series. And if you're watching this on Monday, last night was episode 798 of The Simpsons, over 37 seasons. It has been running on Fox ever since the Reagan administration. There was a theatrical release in 2007, and there's recently been announced there will be a sequel coming out in 2027. The title itself ran for 245 issues. Bongo was named after the rabbit in Matt Groening's original Life is Hell comic strip, and Groening and Morrison, as well as Steve and Cindy Vance, created the Bongo Company, and they did Futurama, SpongeBob, and a couple of other properties, a lot of Simpsons-related comic books. This has a total of 2,687. But it's not the first appearance of The Simpsons in comics. That is this book from Welsh Publishing Group. It is Simpsons Comics and Stories, issue number 1. So Welsh did other things like The Real Ghostbusters. And this one-shot, which came polybagged with a poster, was the first appearance of The Simpsons in comic books. And it came out just before, obviously the same year as Simpsons Comics #1. And, you know, we see Bartman, we see Radioactive Man. So a little bit of a preview of other Simpsons-related titles that would come out in 1993. Bongo really hit the ground running with a lot of titles, but this one from Welsh, and it is fairly expensive at a 9.8. You got that dark spine. I did get a 9.8. That was a self-submission. I rarely buy graded books, but that one I've had a few that I've submitted. That was the first one that came back a 9.8. I got a bunch of other candidates that I will be working my way through. But enough about me. This comes in with 2,461 copies on the census. Now, this came in a polybag. Let's talk about polybags. Superman #75, the polybagged edition, which kind of looked like this gray cover that looked like a tombstone. Here lies Earth's greatest hero, Superman #75. Polybag also included a bunch of accoutrements, like there was a black armband and there was a trading card and some other stuff. This one is kind of challenging to get in high grade just because you don't know what it looks like if it's picked up any spine ticks when it's been in the polybag. Because unlike the Simpsons Comics and Stories is in a clear polybag so you can see the book and get a general idea, this is that black polybag with the red dripping and the Superman logo. There is a special one which is platinum, but you wouldn't be able to determine that from the getting it graded. This comes in with a count of my eyesight. 2,296. Our next book is Spawn issue #8. Alan Moore did the story. McFarlane homaging himself from the cover of Spider-Man #1. And that makes this a fairly popular book, and it comes in with 2,199 copies. From Marvel is Gambit #1. This is like Deadpool, a embossed, but it's also got the gold foil on the cover. Howard Mackey did the story, Lee Weeks and Klaus Janson did the art, and this has 2,131 copies on the population report. Our next book is from DC, but it's under the Milestone imprint. It is Static #1. This is the collector's edition by Dwayne McDuffie did the story. Dennis Cowan and Jimmy Palmiotti did the cover, and John Paul Leone and Steve Mitchell did the interior art. It's maybe the first appearance of Static. There was a 3-page preview in Icon #1. This came in a polybag. You could see part of the comic, but you couldn't really see the spine. It's kind of got blue around. So Static was part of the Milestone universe. A bunch of African-American creators created their own universe with characters like Icon and Rocket and Hardware and Zombie. Now, this title did run for 45 issues. The later issues with the print count diminished quite a bit, and they're fairly expensive. Now, Static then became a popular character thereafter. There was an animated series on the Kids WB from 2000 to 2004, 7 years after this book came out, that ran for 4 seasons and 52 episodes, called Static Shock, which popularized the character. Then he became part of the Young Justice animated series, and DC had used them again and then reintegrated out of Infinite Crisis, integrated the Milestone characters into the DC universe proper. There's been a lot of talk about a live-action feature, Michael B. Jordan attached to it. Nothing has come of that. There are a couple of variants of this book that we will talk about as we go through. This clocks in with a total of 2,107 copies on the census. Our next book on the list is Venom Lethal Protector #5. Another one in this series by Dave Michelini and Mark Bagley. Sam De La Rosa did the inks. Just a very popular series, I guess, for 6 issues, get them all graded, whatever. This has 2,099 copies. Our next book is from Image Comics, and it is Pit #1 by Brian Hutton and Dale Keown. It's the first appearance of Pit. This ran for 9 issues. Wasn't one of the more popular Image titles, and Dale Keown honestly wasn't one of the more popular Image creators. This a readily available book, 2,054 copies on the census. Another one from Image Comics is The Max #1 by Sam Keith and William Messner-Loebs, with a cover by Sam Keith. This is not his first appearance either. But this, again, this first wave of Image Comics, right? We had gotten the Youngblood and the Wildcats and the Spawn and the Savage Dragon in 92, and this is the second wave in 93. Max did run for 35 issues. And there are 1,947 copies. Going back to Marvel, it's Wolverine number 75. This is part of this these issues, these anniversary issues, which had the hologram on the cover. And this is by Larry Hama and Adam Kubert and Mark Farmer did the art. This is the issue, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. It doesn't say it in the notes, but this is the issue where Magneto removes the adamantium from Wolverine's skeleton. I guess it was something he hadn't thought of previously. There are the 1,943 copies in the census. Oh, no, it's this issue number 25 of X-Men, right? I think the Wolverine is the follow-up where his bones are kind of like adjusting and he's in excruciating agony. Here, Magneto removes the adamantium. This also has a holofoil cover. I think it's this issue that has a variant of this that's black holofoil that's very expensive. There are 1,844 copies in the census. We're talking about a lot of variants here. Adventures of Superman number 500. This is the collector's edition. This is the one that came in the white poly bag, right? When Superman came back, but it wasn't really Superman yet. Jerry Ordway did the cover and the art. Tom Grummett and Doug Hazelwood did the interior art. So this is two major first appearances. It's also the first appearance of the Eradicator, but it's the first appearance of Steel, John Henry Irons, who had his own feature film in 1997 as he was portrayed by Shaquille O'Neal in one of the worst superhero movies of all time. I don't know off the top of my head. It's hard-pressed to find one that's worse. I haven't seen Catwoman yet, but Steel was really bad, and there was no connection to anything. Wole Parks portrayed the character in Superman and Lois, and he's been around ever since. It's also the first appearance of the this version of Superboy, Con-El, or Connor Kent, who is a clone combining the DNA of Superman and Lex Luthor. And that character's been on Smallville, he's been on Titans, and again, has been around for quite a bit since then. This, despite these two first appearances, it's such a readily available book. It doesn't have a great deal of value. 1,752 copies in the census. The other thing I should say is that this is kind of like there's like a hologram for in the cover here. Any rate, going back to new publisher. It's our top book from Valiant, and it is Bloodshot #1 with a chromium cover. Kevin Van Hook did the story. Don Perlin and Bob Wyachek did the interior art, and Barry Windsor Smith did the cover. It is foily goodness from the 90s. The Bloodshot ran for 51 issues, and there are 1,637 copies on the population report. Our next book is Venom Lethal Protector #1, the gold edition. Now, this was a special edition. Instead of the red foil that most of them have, this has gold foil. It is much more valuable. And there are 1,530 copies on the census, so it's about a 1 in 15 variant, I guess. If you look at the number of copies, obviously this will be graded in a little bit lower grades than the cover A. Let's keep rolling along because we have a lot of books to cover. This is Batman #500, the collector's edition. This is a die-cut embossed foil logo. This also has Azrael becoming Batman because Bruce Wayne's back is broken. They needed a replacement. There is also a standard cover of this. This has 1,497 copies. Next book is Superman, the Man of Steel, #19 with a Doomsday appearance. He ain't dead yet, but he's getting there with this book. Doomsday's first appearance was the previous month, which is a 92 book, and his first full appearance in Superman, Man of Steel, #92. Did I say Deadpool? It's Doomsday. So here he's continuing to fight Superman. There are, how many? 1,292 copies. Back to Valiant. Bloodshot #6, which is the first appearance of Ninjak by Vanderhook Perlin and John Dixon. There are 1,132 copies. Image. Spawn #7. McFarlane's story and art. First published artwork of Randy Queen. There are 1,111 copies on the population report. Our next book, and this is an interesting one. So this is from Dark Horse Comics. It is San Diego Comic Con Comics #2. This is the first appearance of Hellboy in a U.S. comic book. So there's some previews in here. There's Danger Unlimited, Monkey Man and O'Brien. It was a promotional book. You see, there's a lot of people that worked on this. Paul Chadwick and John Byrne and Dave Gibbons, Mike Allred, etc., James O'Barr. But it's the Hellboy appearance that makes this book very sought after and reasonably hard to get, but there are still 1,092 copies on the population report. Next book is Radioactive Man #1. Now, I wasn't referring to Dan Castellaneta as portraying two characters, because he's Homer and he's Radioactive Man. But whatever. All those Simpsons guys do a lot of, a lot of different characters. But Radioactive Man #1 from Bongo. This is a glow-in-the-dark cover. So it's another gimmicky cover with a black spine. Hard to get in high grade. Steve Vance and Bill Morrison worked on this. The Radioactive Man run is kind of fun because they do imitations in the covers, especially of different eras of comic books, and they jump around in their numbering, right? Like, this, like almost like this one came out in the Golden Age, and then there's like a 50s one and a 60s and early 70s and all sorts of fun stuff like that. There are 1,058 copies. From Image Comics is Darker Image issue #1. This is the first appearance of the Max as well as Deathblow and Bloodwolf. It's a one-shot. It was in a polybag, and there are 1,053 copies. Staying with Image, it's Spawn #10, where Dave Sim did a story and Cerebus did a crossover. We see a lot of this where these independent artists who controlled their own properties had the latitude to just say, okay, I'll appear in your book. No big deal. Not any legal hassles to go through. This Cerebus, of course, on the cover here. Is this Cerebus's first cover? No, I think there was a color Cerebus reprint earlier. At any rate, there are 961 copies in the population report. Going back to Bongo is Bartman #1. This has a silver foil cover because he's about to fall into that vat of silver ink, which is foily on the cover. There are Bartman ran for 6 issues. There are 948 copies on the population report. Go back to DC. Catwoman #1, an embossed cover. Are we seeing a pattern here, folks? This is by Jim Ballant. Joe Duffy did the story. This particular run of Catwoman, this is Volume 2. Volume 1 was a 4-issue miniseries. Volume 2 here ran for 94 issues. And this has a population report count of 897. Going back to Valiant. Oh, this is it. This is the grail. It is Turok Dinosaur Hunter issue #1. It's an embossed foil and chromium cover. There's also a gold edition. Dave Michelini did the story. Bart Sears and Randy Elliott did the cover and art. This book is everywhere. The title ran for 47 issues. And it was a takeoff. This is how Valiant, they had already done Dr. Solar and Magnus Robot Fighter. So Turok Son of Stone was another popular gold key character from the late 50s into the 60s. And Valiant got the rights to the character. 818 copies. Back to DC and Milestone. This is Static #1. This is the standard cover that was not in the polybag. There's also a newsstand edition of this. This has 763 copies. From Dark Horse is Star Wars Tales of the Jedi #1. It's the first appearance of 3 characters whose names I am not comfortable pronouncing. That's not disrespectful because they're not real people. Tom Veitch did the story and Dave Dorman did the cover. As we see, Dark Horse is beginning. I think we're going to see some Dark Horse keys on the list with Star Wars over the next several years. This ran for 5 issues. It was a miniseries, 719 copies. Gambit #1. This is the embossed gold edition. The scan just looks black, but if you see this in person, it's really kind of striking. The gold cover. Should we keep like a gimmick count at this point? I mean, how many of these covers have been gimmicky so far with foil or embossedness? 1, 2, 3. Only 3. 4. Or with a hologram. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 10. Not that one. 11. Bartman's 12, Catwoman's 13, Turok's 14, and this is 15. So there have been 15 gimmicky covers so far. Let's go on to Image Valiant, and this is Deathmate Black, no number. This is the first full appearance of Gen 13, which we'll talk about, I guess, a little bit more. Brandon Choi and Eric Silvestri did this story. Mark Silvestri and Will Spartasio the art. There are a total of, how many? 693 copies. Now, our next book is Spawn number 9, and this is kind of interesting that it's separated. And I guess it always has been. This is Spawn number 9, the newsstand edition. Same cover price. But, again, CGC only started denoting newsstand a few years ago. But this one is quite a bit more expensive, as are most newsstands now that were in the 1990s. First appearance of Angela, yada, yada, yada. 674 copies on the census. We go to a new one. Topps Comics. Their number 1 book is Jurassic Park number 1. This was a polybag book. There are a couple of other covers of issue number 1. This is the most prevalent. It was a 4-issue miniseries that adapted the 1993 film by Steven Spielberg with Jeff Goldblum and Richard Attenborough and Sam Neill and Laura Dern and the kids. And Wayne Knight. There are... and it led to a popular movie franchise that's still going today. This Topps did a lot of movie and TV properties like, Dracula and X-Files, etc. 498 copies. From Image/Wizard. This is one of those Wizards, and Wizard did a lot of these one-half comics, which are promotional comics that came in the book, or a mail away. This is a mail away exclusive with a purple foil logo. 16 by Sam Keith. Max number 1/2, 340 copies. From DC's Vertigo imprint is Death, The High Cost of Living, issue number 1 by Neil Gaiman. Chris Bacalo and Mark Buckingham did the art, and Dave McKean did the cover, as he did with all the Sandman issues. This was a miniseries of 3 issues, was adapted into the final issue of, or the final episode of the Sandman TV series on Netflix, which I do recommend. I'm going to give you a couple of other recommendations later on. Of things to read or see. But this has a total... Again, Vertigo was the more adult imprint for DC Comics that Sandman and Hellblazer, etc. fell under. There are 333 copies. From Archie Publications is Sonic the Hedgehog number 0. This is the first issue of the popular Hedgehog character. Everybody's favorite blue hedgehog. Sonic, under the Archie imprint, ran for 290 issues, so really long run of Sonic. And that was all before the initial live-action film came out. There are 316 copies of this on the Pop Report. Let's go to our next book, and this is Static number 1, the Platinum Edition, 17. The electricity around his hands is foily. And that makes it a little bit harder to find variant. 286 copies in the census. Our next book is Venom Lethal Protector number 1, the black cover printing error. 18 foily gimmicky covers. So instead of the red foil, which is in most of them, that didn't print on some of them and it got out, so it's like black. It wasn't intentional like the gold was. Interestingly, CGC puts it into a blue label, not a green one, which they do for some printing errors. This has 261 copies in the census. Eclipse. We're saying goodbye to Eclipse. This is Miracle Man number 24, the final issue of the series. It took forever to come out. Neil Gaiman did the story, Mark Buckingham did the art, and Barry Windsor Smith did the cover. Marvel, just a few years ago, got the rights to Miracle Man and have reprinted and been publishing new stories and included him in their multiverse. This has I'd love to see a Miracle Man TV show or movie. How about you? You with me? Let me know in the comments below. 220 copies. Next book is from Antarctic Press. This is Strangers in Paradise, issue number 1, by Terry Moore. First appearance of Francine Helena Peters and Katina Kachu Chavansky. I'm not really familiar with this property for some reason, and educate me. I'm not sure. This is an insanely expensive book. Very expensive compared to the other books that we're talking about, even from the other publishers. But the rest of the run is like dollar bin fodder. I'm not quite sure. There are 188 copies in the census. This series ran for 3 issues, and then there were subsequent longer-running series. Our next book is a top book from Harvey Publications. This is Ultraman #1, the Virgin edition, with no trade dress by Ken Stacy did the cover. Dwayne McDuffie did the story. Ernie Colon and Alfredo Alcala did the art. This was a polybag book, which makes it easier to determine when it's on the stands what it is. It is Ultraman #1, which is a Japanese property that began with the film Ultra Q in 1966, and there were subsequent films just about every year of this giant race of aliens that come to Japan to battle kaiju, which Japan, obviously, in the 60s really needed. It has become a popular property ever since. Very, very popular in Japan, and does have its share of fans. Here in the United States, there are 182 copies on the Pop Report, and this title ran for 3 issues. Up next is a top book from Basement Comics. It's Cave Woman #1. Bud Root story, cover, and art. And it's the first appearance of Miriam Cooper. I have to imagine that is named after Marion C. Cooper, one of the producers who created the original King Kong film. I think he was also involved in The Lost World. This book ran for 6 issues, and there are 145 copies of this on the Population Report. The next book is Dime Press #4. This is from Italy with a Mike Mignola cover. This is a kind of a first Hellboy appearance that predates the first U.S. appearance in the San Diego Comic-Con comic, and also the Next Men comic. And he is featured on the cover. Not the same looking as we were accustomed to, but again, a very sought-after book, but with just 138 copies on the census. Our next book is from Mirage Studios. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #60. First appearance of Shadow. I don't know if that's overly significant. That has 125 copies on the census. From London Night is Razor Annual #1 by Billy Tucci, Kevin Hill, Rick Fuchsia, and Mark Sasso. There is a Tim Vigil pun-up on the back cover. This has 116 copies on the census. From Harris is Vampirella issue #3. This is Tom Snagosky did the story. Jim Ballant did the interior art, and Adam Hughes did the cover. If you're an Adam Hughes fan. Yet this one only has 112 copies on the Population Report. From Cartoon Books is Bone issue #9 by Jeff Smith with 103 copies on the census. From Malibu is Street Fighter #1, the gold edition with the gold foil logo. That makes 19. Len Straczewski did the art. Don Hillsman and Jeff Whiting did the art. Hillsman did the cover. This is based on the popular Capcom video game series that premiered in 1987 with a sequel of Street Fighter II in 1991. This clocks in. This was a 3-issue series. There are 97 copies of this on the Population Report. Our next book is Mr. T and the T-Force, issue #1. This was polybagged. There is also, not this one. There is a gold foil one. So we're still going to keep our count of foily goodness at 19. Neil Adams did the story, the cover, and the art. So you get a Mr. T book. Now, Mr. T first rose to prominence as there was a NBC TV series called The Sunday Games. And they had a segment. It was like a kind of reality show, news program where they went around to different corners of the country and documented these strange competitions, including the America's Toughest Bouncer, which was won by Mr. T. And then that actually transformed into the show, The Games People Play, which I remember watching this. That's how old I am. Which got him the role of Clubber Lang in Rocky III. And he had used his infamous phrase, or his famous phrase, it's not really infamous, his famous phrase, "I pity the fool," in an interview after one of the bouncing competitions. They worked that into the script of Rocky III. It became his trademark. And then around the same time, I think before Rocky III came out, he got the role of B.A. Baracus in the A-Team TV series, which, when it first came out, was immensely popular. Its ratings kind of dwindled off over the 3 seasons of the show. He had his own cartoon, which ran for 30 episodes. And he has, he created a brand of himself. This particular book has a total of, and it ran for 10 issues, 69 copies on the census. It's from Now Comics. Our next book, let me see. Checking notes. I have a lot of notes. Is from Defiant. It is Warriors of Plasm issue number 1 by Jim Shooter did the story. So the Jim Shooter left Valiant, went over to Defiant to create some new stuff. David Lapham did the art. This has ran for 13 issues, Warriors of Plasm, and there are 49 copies on the population report. From KS Comics is Evil Ernie the Resurrection. Silver foil logo, that makes 20. There's a Jim Ballant poster included. This is Brian Pulido did the story. Jose Quezada did the cover. Stephen Hughes did the interior art. This ran for 4 issues. There are 47 copies on the population report. The next book is from Capital Image Comics. This is Spawn Capital Collection No Number. It's a thicker book that collects Spawn's numbers 1 through 3. Just a reprint title. Essentially 46 copies in the census. From Eternity is Ninja High School issue number 1, and it's the first appearance of somebody. I forget. First, I'm not really well versed, because this is a book that is worth more than most issues of Ninja High School. First appearance of Shauna Masters, who later becomes Warrior Nun Ariella. Okay, you heard it here. I didn't know that until, today. So Ninja High School, Ben Dunn did the story and cover and art, and this has 44 copies on the population report. From Claypool Comics is Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, issue number 1. Cassandra Peterson, who portrayed Elvira, has a photo cover. Paul Dini and Mary Jo Duffy did the story. James Fry, Terry Austin, Dan Spiegel did the art. This series ran for 166 issues. For issue number 1, 42 copies on the population report. Collaboration between DC and Kamiko is Batman Grendel, Devil's Mask number 2, which just edges out issue number 1, which is the Devil's Riddle. Matt Wagner did the story, cover, and art, and there are 40 copies on the population report. Should note that there is also an silver foil 21 Ash Can edition of Batman and Grendel, and more expensive, there are 37 copies on the census. What are we up to? 21. Next book. This is an interesting one. It's not a comic book per se. It is from Western Publishing, and it is Batman. Almost got him. No number. Paul Dini and Jack C. Harris did the story. Al Bigley and Mike DiCarlo did the art. So there was an Batman the Animated Series cassette tape, right? Golden Record reprints back in the day. You had not LPs, 45s, records. You played on a record player. This was a cassette that you put into a tape player, or a Walkman, if you will. This predated CDs and stuff. But at any rate, why is this significant? This is the first appearance in print of Harley Quinn in a story. She might have been printed somewhere else. There are 36 copies of this on the population report. From Russ Cochran, he was doing reprints of EC books. This is Shock Suspense Stories, issue number 6 with a Wally Wood cover. Reprints the 52-53 book. There are 33 copies on the population report. Top from Image/Top Cow is Cyber Force Limited Series number 4. First appearance of Codename Strike Force. It has an embossed silver foil cover. That makes 22. 32 copies on the census. The top book from Walt Disney Comics is The Return of Disney's Aladdin, based on the 1992 film, which won 2 Oscars, for score by Alan Menken and for song, A Whole New World by Menken and Tim Rice. This Jafar is a genie, I guess, and he's looking for revenge on Aladdin. There were only 2 issues to this. We had seen the previous year, there was a Beauty and the Beast one, there's a Little Mermaid one, so there's an Aladdin one here. And Disney was getting to basics and, appealing to their core audience, which were kids who love these films. There are 29 copies on the population report. Our next book is from Fantagraphics Books. It is 8-Ball issue number 11 by Dan Close. This is the beginning of the Ghost World storyline. So I think it ran for several issues, to 15 or to 18. That Ghost World was given a graphic novel later on, but the Ghost World storyline was adapted into a 2001 feature film by Terry Zwigoff, starring Thora Birch, Scarlett Johansson, and Steve Buscemi. And Zwigoff and Close co-wrote the screenplay, and Close was nominated for an Academy Award for that. So a comic book writer is nominated for an Oscar. And this is one of my recommendations. I love the movie. I'm a big fan of Dan Close's work. I collected 8-Ball when it came out. The movie is really good. Fun fact, I didn't know this, but Thora Birch's parents appeared together. I'm not sure in the same scene because I'm not familiar with the source material, but they appeared together in the 1973 pornographic film Deep Throat. Fun fact. There are how many copies of this? No foil. There are 28 copies on the population report. From Image/Extreme is Team Youngblood number 1 by Rob Liefeld and Eric Stevenson. Chap Yape and Art Tibert did the cover. Again, Liefeld was affiliated with Image, but he did have his own studios with Extreme. This ran for 22 issues. 27 copies on the population report. Top book from Wizard, just from Wizard, not the one half that was done in collaboration. This is Wizard, the Superman Tribute Edition. No number, it's a special linked to the Death of Superman storyline. Dan Jurgens and Brett Breeding did the cover. There's an embossed foil gatefold cover. That's 23, and this came in a poly bag. We didn't count the poly bags. 27 copies on the population report. From Poland. I don't do a lot of foreign books. I do not do foreign reprints because I don't have time for that. This is Przinski. From Przinski, it is Comics number 26. This is the first appearance in a comic book of The Witcher. The novels by Andrzej Sapkowski. The first novel was in 1990, and of course there is the TV series that had starred Henry Cavill that was, I believe, on Netflix. This is the first time we get Witcher in a comic book. 26 copies on the population report. The top book from CFD Publications is Cry for Dawn Calendar, no number, by Joseph Michael Linsner. And we know why this is popular. 24 copies on the population report. From Dark Horse / Valiant is Predator versus Magnus Robot Fighter. Jim Shooter and John Ostrander did the story. Lee Weeks did the art, and Barry Windsor Smith did the cover. 24 copies. From Mulehide Graphics is Poison Elves number 8 by Drew Hayes. This was the takeover. Issues 1 through 7 were I, Lucifer, who is one of the main characters here, and then it becomes Poison Elves. 24 copies. From Viz Comics is Battle Angel Alita issue number 8 by Yukito Kishiro. Popular manga. 24 copies. From Fantagraphics Books is Acme Novelty Library issue number 1. It's an independent book that I'm not completely familiar with. But it's the smartest kid on earth, Jimmy Corrigan. That's the name of the Spectre in DC Comics, Jim Corrigan? Are they related? 22 copies on the census, or population report, I should say. This next one is really interesting. This is from Playground Publishing. This is Teaching with Calvin and Hobbes, no number. This is a student workbook that we're able to use the Calvin and Hobbes name and likeness to help appeal to children / sell their workbooks. This is one of the more bizarre collectibles. Now, Calvin and Hobbes was a newspaper strip by Bill Watterson that ran from November of 1985 to New Year's Eve on November 1985 to New Year's Eve of 1995. Very popular, well-respected strip. If you're not familiar with Calvin and Hobbes, I suggest you check it out. But Bill Watterson, refused to do any merchandising. And the estimates are he's lost like $300 or $400 million by making that decision. So there are only a handful of things that have legitimate Calvin and Hobbes advertising. You'll often see on the back of like a truck, there'll be like one of those stencils with Calvin, or what appears to be Calvin. It's Calvin, appearing to urinate on the symbol of a competitor's, like the icon of the competitive brand of truck or something. That's not legitimate. That is a bootleg counterfeit item, not a counterfeit, but I guess a bootleg, because nobody granted the maker of that. Bill Watterson did not grant them the rights to use his trademarked character. He doesn't fight it, I guess. But that's not the spirit of Calvin and Hobbes. But they were in this workbook. Unfortunately, they're not on the cover. Does it say who did the cover? Jan Robican. Interestingly, the copy I came up that was in its magazine size casing, but again, it's just a workbook, so it's a little thicker. Came back at 9.9. Probably in some teacher's, drawer that they never used. At any rate, just a weird book with 21 copies on the population report. I almost want one. Not really. From Nintendo of America is Nintendo Power number 50. The Legend of Zelda cover. There are 20 copies. From Buffalo Books is Comics Talk number 1 with a Sam Keith cover of the Max. How many? 19 copies. From Gladstone, they get back to doing some Disney at this point after not having it for a while. This is the first Gladstone issue. Picked up the numbering. Walt Disney's Uncle Scrooge number 281 with a Don Rosa cover. 18 copies. From Adhesive Comics is Too Much Coffee Man number 1 by Shannon Wheeler. Shannon Wheeler created a mini comic in 1991, which became a newspaper strip in the Daily Texan, then got a comic book. They ran for 10 issues. There are 17 copies on the population report. From Dynacom is Famous Monsters of Filmland number 200. This is not when the first issue back, but I guess it's an anniversary issue. It is popular. There are 17 copies, which ties it with, from Arrows Comics, Wallace Wood's Malice in Wonderland issue number 1. Wally Wood did the whole thing. It is a dirty Alice in Wonderland story. If that's your thing, 17 copies. From Kitchen Sink Press is Cherry issue number 15. Okay. Suggestive cover. There are 17 copies on the population report. From Entity is Zen Intergalactic Ninja Zero, the holochromium cover. So that's what now, 23 foil covers? I'm kind of losing count. This is issue number 0. It has a count of 16. From New England Comics is The Tick number 12 from Ben Edlund. This has a gold foil logo. It's a virgin cover. All sorts of things going on here. That's 24 foilies. 16 copies. From Boneyard Press by Hart D. Fisher is Jeffrey Dahmer versus Jesus Christ. So I guess after the success of the unauthorized Jeffrey Dahmer biographical comic that came out the previous year, for audiences with a sense of humor only. There's obviously a sacrilegious part of this. So there are going to be people that are offended by that aspect of it. And I guess the point was to be offensive, right? On top of that, I think it's problematic, my opinion. Problematic to like create this light entertainment, this parody almost of somebody who had real world victims, right? Like, I can watch a movie or a show about a murderer or serial killer when it's fictional because nobody actually died. Or if it's a long time ago, like, where the folks would be dead anyway, right? Kind of time has passed. But when those victims still have families that are alive, and it was so gruesome, and you're capitalizing on that without, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't read the comic, but I don't think you're adding anything to, to the story, really. It's a horrendous story, and I don't know if there's any subtlety to it. There's no subtlety to this, though. Like I could watch, what was the Michael Rooker film? Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. Fascinating film, excellently done, excellent performance by Michael Rooker. It's fictional, so it's easier to take. Some of them are based on true things and whatever. But anyway, enough of that. This has 15 copies on the census. From Continuity Comics is Valeria the She-Bat issue number 1. It's a wraparound acetate cover. Would take us to 25. This ran issues 0 to 5, 15 copies. From Epic Comics imprint of Marvel is Clive Barker's Hellraiser number 20 with a Tristan Shane cover. Neil Gaiman contributed some of the writing to it. This has 15 copies. From Revolutionary Comics is Rock and Roll Comics number 55, focusing on U2, 14 copies. So coming in next is from Rebel Studios is Faust Volume 2 number 10 by David Quinn and Tim Vigil. Is there anything I have to... Yeah, I got to edit this one a little bit, I think. Faust, very violent, very graphic, not for children, as it says on the cover. 12 graded copies on the population report. Up next is Cerebus the Aardvark number 0. I guess here he's the color. This is the gold edition. Gold logo. I guess that's now 26 books that fall into that. Dave Sim did the story, cover, and art. I do believe it's a reprint book, but don't hold me to that. There are 10 copies. From Cherry Comics is Cherry's Jubilee, issue number 3. We've already seen Cherry. Here's Cherry's Jubilee. 8 copies. From Comico itself, not in conjunction with Batman, is the Elementals Sexy Lingerie Special Chicago, issue number 1 by Tony Atkins. Now, one of the things is I believe that possessive apostrophe is in the wrong place in the title because it's Elementals, blah, 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 blah. That would mean it would be belonging to one elemental, not to the team entitled the Elementals. So, Grammar Police, what do you think? There are 7 copies. From Personality Comics is Shaquille O'Neal, issue number 1, the story of the NBA star, his days at LSU, and then with the Orlando Magic. This came out before he went to the LA Lakers. And as I said, we have somebody who portrayed the character with the first appearance. Here it is. Shaquille O'Neal, of course, portrayed John Henry Iron Steel in that 1997 disaster of a movie. This Personality Comics book has 7 copies on the population report. I'm going to answer the other part of the trivia question, which wasn't David Harbour. This is from Innovation, Beauty and the Beast, issue number 1, which is a adaptation of the CBS TV series that ran for 3 seasons from 1987 to 1990 for 56 episodes, starring Ron Perlman and Linda Hamilton. Of course, Ron Perlman, the first appearance of this character, basically this group of unusual looking misfits lives in the subway in New York City, and I think Linda Hamilton is a lawyer or whatever, and they fall in love, despite the fact that he looks like the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. First appearance of this character, first appearance of Hellboy, both portrayed by Ron Perlman. George R.R. Martin was one of the writers and producers on this, who later went on to Game of Thrones fan. Some of this is at least in part based on the old Beauty and the Beast story. Probably has more connection to the 1946 Jean Cocteau film, which was made in France. This has 6 copies on the population report. Top book from EC is Mad Super Special number 85. Also with 6 copies on the population report. We're down into single digits, my friends. Our next book is from Atomica Press. It is Monster Massacre. No number. Simon Bisley cover. 5 copies. From World of Fandom is Rat Fink number 5. Craig L. Story, Rick Sloan cover and art. Up next is from Double Diamond Press. It is the Collegiate Hepcats. No number. It collects Hepcats number 1 and some selected Hepcats comic strips. This has 4 copies. From Mad Love Publishing is From Hell, issue number 2 by Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell, which of course was another book adapted to a 2001 theatrical release. There are 4 copies. From Last Gasp is Weirdo number 20, a magazine with Robert Crumb cover and art. We haven't heard a lot of from Crumb in at least a decade, I would say. 4 copies in the census. The top book from Tundra is Madman Adventures issue number 1 by Mike Allred. 4 copies. From Ripoff Press is Fat Freddy's Cat issue number 7 by Gilbert Shelton. There are, this is the final issue, 3 copies. From DC's Impact line is Crucible issue number 1, 3 copies. From Fleetway Publications is Dread Rules number 1, Cliff Robinson cover. It's Fleetway covering itself and, bringing Judge Dredd back. And finally, our last book from Slave Labor is Milk and Cheese number 1 by Evan Dorkin with a single copy on the population report. And that's going to do it for this week. That was a crazy list. Let me know what you think. Let me know how many books you have. How many books do I have? I do believe I have 33 issues on the list. Let me know what you have and which one that you don't have would you most like to have. Leave that in the comments below. A little bit delayed in getting this one out, but the process is becoming a little more complicated and requiring a little more work. I'd like to thank you all for stopping by. You can take a look at a couple of my other videos here. And this is Jim saying until next time, enjoy your comics.